With another tough loss, the Giants find themselves 1-3 coming out of the All-Star break in an all too familiar position with the trade deadline approaching in about a week.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And coming up on today's show, we're going to discuss the Giants coming out of the gates 1-3. And that's why, you lose a game to the Dodgers, a one-run game last night. You have very little margin for error against that team. And that's why I was discussing how important it was that they do well against the Rockies to come out of the break immediately. But instead they lose 2 out of 3 to Colorado, and now you've lost the first one in LA, and now suddenly you must win your next 2 out of 3 just to split this 4-game series. And if you can't do that and say you go 1-3 against the Dodgers, then suddenly you're looking at a 2-5 road trip to start the second half. And it's 2-5 would be that. So, but you never know. It is baseball. The Giants could win the next 3 games for all we know, but that's certainly not the most likely outcome. And so we're going to get into the game, but I want to get into the standings and how this is an all too familiar position that they find themselves in around this time of the year under this regime outside of 2021 when they won 107 games, which, by the way, they're 2 losses away from matching their loss total from that season. So they would have they could go 59-2. They would have to go 59-2 to match their 2021 record, just to give you an idea of how bonkers that season was. But with the loss, the Giants are 48-53. They're 4 games out of the final wild card spot. We're not even discussing the division, because they're 12 games back and the Dodgers are just kind of cruising to another division title. And the Giants are, half a game away from being the 3rd worst team in the National League again, which there's a big gap. There would be a big gap between them and the Rockies and the Marlins, but you're like borderline right now 3rd worst team in the National League. You're tied for 4th worst in the National League, but you're also not far away from being one of the best in the National League. Like, they're 4.5 back from being the 5th best in the NL. And so it is like they're much closer to being 5th best than they are to being worst, but also they're much closer to being 3rd worst than they are to being 5th best. And so, 4 games back, but the Cubs are ahead of them. The Cubs have kind of indicated that they're not planning to be buyers. Cubs are ahead of the Giants by half a game. The Diamondbacks are 3 games ahead of the Giants. The Padres are 3.5 games ahead of the Giants. The Pirates are 3.5 games ahead of the Giants. And that's all teams that are not in a playoff position. And then you've got the Mets as the 3rd wildcard team right now, and the Giants are 4 back. And the Cardinals 4.5 back of the 2nd wildcard spot. Braves are kind of reeling. They're only 9 games over 500, holding on to that number 1 wildcard spot, and they've been decimated by injuries. Giants are 7 back there. And so, like, a playoff spot is not out of the realm of possibility at all, but with, with just losses, I don't want to say piling up, but just with every loss, it just decreases the chances that the Giants make the playoffs. And according to FanGraphs, the Giants' playoff odds are 17.4%, which I want to say is a season low for them, I would imagine, because I've been tracking it. Maybe they've been somewhat near there at certain moments, but yeah, you're in danger here, especially with 3 games coming up against LA, and then the schedule softens. But they've just got to do better, and they were close. I mean, last night was a winnable game. It was a close game. It was a well-played game, but that's really why, okay, you should have taken advantage against the Rockies. You can look back at that game 1 when the umpire, Chris Conroy, got in the way of a ball that would have probably made it 5-0 Giants, and instead it became an out, and it was still 3-0. And I don't know, maybe the whole game, series, season, like, changes with that. I don't know. That's a little dramatic to say the whole season, but it was a big thing that happened there with the umpire blocking a double down the line, or a triple possibly. So the all too familiar feeling, though, I want to just point out that the Giants' record since the start of 2022, so the year after they won 107 games, so we're talking, over 2.5 full seasons here, is 208 wins, 217 losses. And so, and then you look back before 2021, in 2020, they were 29-31. And in 2019, I think they won like 77 or 78 games or something like that. So they've always been, it's like they've been stuck in this limbo position of not being really bad, but not being really good, outside of not being good, period, outside of 2021, but not being bad either. And so they consistently have found themselves, I feel like, in this position where they're chasing the number 3 wild card spot. They're not that far behind. I want to say last year around this time, they were in a better position. It's easy to forget that they were in a playoff spot for much of the year last year until last year they were 8 games over 500 on this date, and they had just lost 5 in a row. So they had been 13 games over 500, but 8 games over 500, and they had 2 teams just a half game back of them. And so right now the Braves are 9 games over 500, and they have quite a bit of separation. And so last year was just a tougher year for the Giants to be in that position. And then if we go back to this date in 2022, July 23rd, 2022, the Giants were 48-46, 2 back of the 3rd wildcard spot. And so they were better in 2022. They were better in 2023 than they are in 2024. And I would say roster-wise, they pretty easily have the best roster they've had in any of those 3 seasons. And so it kind of doesn't add up in a way. I will ignore 2021 because we know that their record is going to be bonkers. They had the best record in the sport pretty much all season. But going back to 2019, which I think is a little unfair to go that far back, because that was year 1 under this regime, and they were still saddled with bad contracts and this, that, and the other, and they weren't gonna. It was a different, man. They had won. They were 9-1. They were better in 2020, in 2019 at this date. They were 52-50 because they were having that extremely hot July that they had. So that's the thing. That year's team, 2019, they had a super hot July, and they just went on a great streak. And last year's team won 10 in a row. They went into LA at some point during that streak. They won a game 15-0 in LA. 10-game winning streak. And so, yes, you're 5 games under 500, but you're 10-game winning streak, or 9-1 or whatever, away from being back firmly in a good spot. And so it's never like count the season over on July 23rd, but at the same time, you can't bank on that, and you'd certainly rather be in a better position. But it's just frustrating, 2.5 seasons, more than 2.5, like 2 seasons plus about 100 games, and a record that's consistently like a little bit worse than 500, essentially. And it's just, that's a lot of mediocre baseball to endure. and it could be worse. I mean, there's plenty of teams that it's been a lot worse for, but in terms of wins, that places the Giants 18th. The A's are 126 games under 500 during that span. Rockies are similar. A lot of teams are below the Giants there, but it's just not good enough for a team that has had a lot of time and a front office that has had a lot of time to turn this team into a contender. So the 2024 Giants need to turn it around and quickly and avoid disaster in LA. So coming up in just a minute, we'll get into how the offense has gone ice cold coming out of the All-Star break and how that's been a key contributor, because they've had some good pitching performances, but they haven't been able to win those games. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. Maybe you're listening from L.A. right now and you took advantage of the opportunities in L.A. with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your rival's city. I am a big fan of baseball travel. I've done it several times this season, and from hotels that look out over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down in other sports, we have fewer games, and the sports aren't quite sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. I'm over there right now on FanDuel.com and going to give you the odds for the Giants tonight. The Dodgers are significant favorites once again at a money line of minus 148, even though they've got a rookie pitcher going. Jordan Hicks has been quite good. I was correct on the over-under yesterday. I said it seemed high at 8.5, and I think, it was total 5 runs scored in the game. Over-under today set at 9. I think that's also high with odds of minus 110. So anyway, head over to FanDuel.com and make the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, here we go. We are going to get into the Giants offense being ice cold, except for one player who's been extremely impressive. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking this down. Like, these are critical games here. And so the Giants facing, this guy making his debut last night shut him down. Landon Knack going for LA tonight. He's made all of 8 major league appearances. And of course, he has a 3.23 ERA. And for the Giants, Jordan Hicks on the mound, he's got a ERA that's ballooned up to 3.79, but he's had a lot of rest. So I'm going to be interested to see if Jordan Hicks can kind of turn things around after clearly fatiguing. It is going to be really hot. I don't know exactly how hot at night in LA. Actually, I always pull up the weather. That's at 7 o'clock. It's going to be like 80 degrees in LA. And then by 8, 75. So not too bad, but it's going to be hot, and while he warms up, it's going to be hot. And so we'll see how that goes for Jordan Hicks. And if he's able to reverse the trend, he was on a pretty bad trend. Are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Also, a reminder about Postcast with Eric Engel. If you're looking for that immediate reaction right after the game, if you were frustrated with the way things went down last night, check out Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. Eric also does postcasts for the Warriors and 49ers when they're in season, so definitely subscribe there. And that feed goes on our normal podcast feed, just not on the YouTube channel for Locked On Giants, because it has its own YouTube channel for those live shows right after games. So check that out. Anyway, offense for the Giants in the second half. I mean, it's been a total of 4 games, so we're obviously talking about a tiny sample here, but these are important games. And I'm going to guess without looking that they're going to rank close to last in like weighted runs created plus over these 4 games. And so number 1 team, ironically, Oakland A's. Number 1, that's a small sample theater of, so the Giants are not last, but they're 25th with a weighted runs created plus of 72 since coming out of the break, hitting 186 with a 250 on base and 349 slugging. The worst team, by the way, has been the Guardians, which, they have one of the best records in the American League. So it does go to show you about, they may even have the best record in the American League. I haven't checked exactly on that in a minute, but they don't. But it is second best in the American League. So anyway, the Giants have scored a total of 3 runs in every game coming out of the All-Star break, and that's definitely not going to do it in Colorado. 3-3-3, and I mean, they won one of them, and then they lost 3-2 last night. So 3-3-3-2. So that's just not going to do it. You got to be putting up 4 or 5 runs a game to give yourself a shot, and 3 of their 4 2 of their 3 losses coming out of the break have been 1-run losses, 4-3 against the Rockies and 3-2 against the Dodgers. So that was a tough one last night. And when you allow just 3 runs against that potent Dodgers offense, you have given yourself a good chance to win. And so if you had told me coming into the game, Giants are going to allow 3 runs in the game against LA, and there's a rookie pitcher going for LA, like, in order to lose, it means you scored 2 or fewer runs. And on average, the Giants are going to score close to 4.5 runs a game. That's where they've been this season. It is the Dodgers. They are tough, but it was a rookie making his MLB debut. There were just some big moments where the offense wasn't able to come through. There were some moments when certain guys did come through, but like one of the big moments was Bob Melvin using Luis Matos in a pinch hitting situation, I think there were runners on the corners with 1 out in a game where the Giants trailed by a run. And Matos, who is known for not striking out, struck out against a lefty pitcher. They lifted Conforto, and Alex Vesia came in and he struck out both batters he faced. And so, they had done that like a little bit before the break, and it worked out. Matos drove in the run with a hard ground ball to Austin Riley in Atlanta, and it was actually an error. And I don't know, I kind of would, it's tricky because, if Conforto like strikes out there, you're kind of like, well, why didn't they go to Matos? It makes a lot of sense. He doesn't strike out a lot, but he also just has been really bad for quite an extended stretch after that extremely hot start. And this is a big spot against a good team, against a good reliever. And I'd kind of lean towards trusting the veteran Conforto there, even though I understand the move to go to Matos. And then you had Matt Chapman up next, and he also struck out. So you got your 2 righties to take a shot there. But the Giants did end up coming back. They took a 1-0 lead. Dodgers tied it on a Teoscar Hernandez home run. Teoscar Hernandez was the Dodgers offense. He drove in all 3 runs for LA, and he was a total thorn in their side, including a huge hit in the 8th inning that was a 2-out, 2-strike hit. And in that at bat, I just must say, looking at the pitch by pitch, they used all 4-seam fastballs, and all but one of them was away. They went away, 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 away. They went away, 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 kind of down, middle in, away, all with 4-seam fastballs. So he's seeing the same velo over and over and over and over and over. And he timed it up finally in the 5th, because the two strikes had been swings and misses, and he timed it up though and hit a rocket up the middle. And so I would have liked to have seen maybe like bury a breaking ball there. It was the go-ahead run. He didn't hit it all that hard. He hit it only 85 miles an hour. It was just perfectly kind of a low liner up the middle. Randy Rodriguez was the chosen reliever in that situation. Ryan Walker had pitched the 7th, and Blake Snell was good. 6 innings, 2 runs, only struck out 4, allowed a homer, 2 walks. I don't know. Just the Giants offense, they struck out 10 times and they had 5 hits and they drew 5 walks. So the 5 walks, you like that, but 5 hits only in the game and only 1 extra base hit. And it came off the bat of Tyler Fitzgerald. And that's the guy I want to praise here. He became the youngest Giants player to homer in 4 consecutive games since Will Clark in, 89? I don't remember exactly what year they said it was. And he also became the first Giants player to homer in 4 consecutive games since Brandon Belt did it in 2018. So Tyler Fitzgerald, have yourself a few game stretch here. And I love that, Bob Melvin is just kind of riding the hot hand with Fitzgerald. His at-bats have been really good. He made a great defensive play that saved them momentarily before that Teoscar Hernandez hit broke their back. Great play as a shortstop up the middle, fielding a ground ball and like flipping it to Wisely. Unbelievable play. And So Fitzgerald has been good defensively. He's a good runner, and he's just been impressive with the bat. And so that's, among a lot going wrong for the Giants, his emergence this season, he's already put up 1.3 FanGraphs wins above replacement in just 38 games. About 2 is an average season for an average player, and he's at 1.3 in 38 games. So it can go backwards though if you start slumping. It's not like it can never go down. It's not like a home run total, right? It's just like it's not a rate stat either, but it's a number that can go down or up. And so it may go down, probably not by too much, but I've just been impressed. He's very patient, does not chase, hasn't drawn a ton of walks, but hasn't chased either, and has hit for power at the major league level. We're talking 48 games with an isolated power of 252, and he hits the ball in the air. One problem just has been contact. Hasn't made a ton of contact, and his strikeout rate as a result is like 31% in his career. But in his major league career, briefly, he's hitting 277, 338 on base, 529 slugging in 48 games, which is about 43% above average. So the more I see of this guy, the more I've just been impressed. He's got 7 steals this year. He's been caught twice in his career, 9 steals, caught twice. So he brings an element of speed that they don't have a lot of otherwise. So anyway, just wanted to give a shout out to not just the offense, but also the defense of Tyler Fitzgerald. And then coming up in just a minute, we will preview the next 3 games coming up for the Giants and why they're so critical and what their schedule looks like after that and why it's just like stay afloat. And then with the trade deadline coming up, you just don't want to put the front office in a position where they don't feel comfortable adding to this team at all. So all of that in just a minute, and before we get into it. Today's episode is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, myself included. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And I take advantage on Tuesdays, and I'm doing that today by taking a lowered projection on more or less on Paul Skeens, set with the strikeout total against the Cardinals set at 5.5, down from I think 7.5. And so I'm taking more than 5.5 strikeouts for Paul Skeens, and I'm taking more than half a hit plus run plus RBI for Patrick Bailey, and that is $25 pays out $50 if that hits. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, as promised, we're going to get into why the Giants must bear down for these final 3 in LA. Like, I don't want to say you must win 2 of the next 3, but it would sure go a long way. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be analyzing Game 2 in the same way we're breaking down Game 1. It was definitely a winnable game, but it's the Dodgers. It's on the road, and you have very little margin for error. The Giants made some mistakes. They made a base running blunder in the first inning. They've been thrown out at third for the first out of an inning too many times lately. Jorge Soler did it in the first inning yesterday. Just things like that It was the first out of the inning, and it was at third, and the Giants did not score. And if that could be an extra run, and it could have completely changed the game. And it was very early on in the game. It was 2 batters into the game, and so you just can't have that. And yeah, there was also a play that Elliot Ramos and Luis Matos converged on what turned out to be a leadoff double. I believe that was the inning where Teoscar Hernandez knocked in the go-ahead run, or that was earlier. There were only 3 runs scored for LA. 1 of them came on a homer. I think it was Kike Hernandez leading off an inning. Someone probably should have caught it. It would have been a good play for either of them, but they both kind of stopped short as it was right in between them as it kind of hit up against the wall as they were both still running. So it would have been a great running catch for either player, but it's just plays you got to make if you want to beat the Dodgers, and they didn't, and they lost. And so tonight, got to do it again. Got to play better. So a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So the Giants going up against Landon Knack today. Landon Knack does have good numbers. When I look, I don't know if the Giants did face this guy earlier this year, but he's got a 3.23 ERA. However, he's allowed almost 2 home runs per 9 innings. The expected ERA is 4. The fielding independent pitching is almost 5. And projections have him coming in with an ERA over 4.5, kind of across the board. And so this is a guy you got to get to, because you're going to face Tyler Glasnow and Clayton Kershaw in the final 2 games of the series. So if you want any chance of having a splitting or avoiding a sweep, you got to take advantage when you have a rookie pitcher who wasn't super highly regarded going and making the start. today. It could be that it's a very short stint and then you got to face a good Dodgers bullpen. But nonetheless, these games are like, this game is very important. And then the next two are going to be very important. And this is why I say just stay alive right now. Don't sink, especially with the trade deadline coming up, because once you're done with LA, you come home. You've got 4 against the Rockies in 3 days. There's a scheduled doubleheader on Saturday. You've got an off day at home. Then you've got 2 against the Oakland A's, and then you go back on the road. So, but you do get that off day at home, and it's 6 games against 2 of the worst record-wise teams in baseball. I know the Rockies just took 2 out of 3, but they're much better at Coors. Their road record is abysmal. And so, yeah, I mean, the Rockies' record on the road is 14-36. Their record at home is 23-28. And the A's record on the road is 15-36. And so you just got to pile up wins when those 2 series come around. And then they go to Cincinnati. They go to Washington, D.C. Those aren't the best 2 teams going right now. The Reds are kind of tough. The Nationals are scrappy, but, you know, those aren't the Dodgers, you know, or the Phillies, you know. And then they come home and they play the Tigers, and then there's the Braves, but then there's more against the A's, and then the White Sox. And that kind of ends the super soft part of the schedule, minus the Braves mixed in there. They also still have games against the Marlins at the end of the month of August. So the Giants must take advantage and just try to survive this series in LA. That's just my kind of mantra here, is try to survive this series in LA. And tonight would be a good night to do it. They're going to get Robbie Ray back in Game 3, so we'll also be previewing that tomorrow. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. I failed to mention they optioned Hayden Birdsong, which I was surprised about, but I also understand it, but I also was disappointed and surprised. So we'll get more into that decision tomorrow as well. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, breaking this one down. Jordan Hicks, Landon Knack, and hopefully the Giants offense can score more than 3 runs, which they haven't done in over a week. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked on Giants.